Good morning, Living Hope, and all my dear brothers and sisters in Christ. God bless you this morning. It's Wednesday morning. It's time for another edition of Living Hope Today. We're going to have a devotional today that I trust will encourage you in your faith and build us up in our knowledge of who God is and what He's done. Last week we talked about what the will of God is, and this week we're looking at how does it go in God's economy when somebody doesn't hear about Jesus in this world. You know, a lot of people will accuse God of being unjust because maybe somebody in some remote place of the world never has heard about Jesus. Can God condemn a person like that? Well, today we're going to revisit the question we started yesterday. Remember with me that we looked at this question: how has God chosen to reveal Himself? You remember, we're finite, He's infinite. If He doesn't choose to reveal Himself to us, we don't know Him. Yesterday we looked at Psalm 19, and a few verses there, I'll just refresh you. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the skies proclaim the work of His hands. One of the ways we know that God is, one of the ways He's revealed Himself is through His creation, particularly in Psalm 19, through the heavens. Just look around. We talked about that at length yesterday. But there's another passage we're going to visit along these lines today, and it's found in the book of Romans in the first chapter. Look what Paul writes to the Roman church. In verse 19, he says, "For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them." Now, he's talking about us. In other words, we can know about God. It should be plain to us. God has shown it to us. How has He shown it to us? Well, here's the verse. God's invisible attributes, His eternal power, His divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made, so that we are without excuse. See that where it says, in the things that have been made? God has demonstrated to you and me His eternal power, His divine nature. He's made it clear to us. It's perceivable. It doesn't matter where in the world we live. It doesn't matter whether there's ever been a missionary or a Bible present. God has made His existence, His divine power, His attributes, His nature. It's all clear to us, as it says right here in 1:20, in the things that have been made. So you and I and anyone on the planet have no excuse as to whether or not to believe that God is. God has displayed Himself. That's the message of Romans 1. Now, let's go back a couple verses. God says, look, the wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men. So understand that God, the Creator, made everything, and now He's going to hold His creatures, that's us, accountable to Him. But He's not going to do it in darkness. He has made Himself plain to us. There is no way we can escape the fact that God exists. That's what those last few verses have been about. But now He tells us, look, my wrath is going to come against all ungodliness and all unrighteousness, and this is why, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. Okay, God's made Himself plain to us. We should know about Him. We should easily perceive Him. But we say to God, I don't want that truth. Even though in His creation He's shown Himself to us, what do we do to get out of following God and honoring Him? Well, let's just think about it. We come up with theories. Hey, one little cell decided, wherever that cell came from, I think I'll divide today. And oh, guess what? That creates everything that ever was. Okay, the heavens, the universe, all the stars, the systems of life, the the human body. It all happened because one day the slime, wherever the slime came from, decided to start to change and become all of creation. Really? I mean, if you're an evolutionist, how do you answer this problem? Okay, let's just give it to you that the slime eventually started organizing and created more better slime that ended up being fish and birds and bears and whales and animals and plants and trees, and all that came out of the slime. Okay, eventually it all grew up to become a man. Okay, now I'll tell you this, sex is a huge problem for the evolutionists. It's because, I know you've noticed this, men and women are different, right? They have different parts that perform different functions. And so if we're going to stick with the theory, what happened? Well, I guess a man over billions and billions of years became fully formed. Well, somewhere independently of that man, a woman went through the same process, and over billions and billions of years, they became formed as well with different parts and different functions. And somehow in that 100-year period where the man was alive and the woman was alive, now we have to assume that they both formed in that same lifespan's worth of time. Okay, they found each other, they figured out what all those parts did, and they were able to procreate because independently of each other, they formed. Are you kidding me? I mean, this is what the Bible's talking about when it says, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. That God is and God created is a truth our culture wants to suppress. Why? Because we don't want to become creatures. Because if we're creatures, we're under the authority of the Creator. If we're under the authority of the Creator, then we are subject to what the Creator wants and what He's decreed and how He's made us. What does the Bible say? In the next verse, 121, Paul writes, for although they knew God, in other words, everything was clear, they did not honor Him as God. They did not give thanks to Him. Okay? Suppressing the truth. We are going to do everything we can to get rid of God, not to love Him, not to honor Him, not to give thanks to Him, not to declare from the evidence before us that He exists. Okay, what happens? Look at the middle of the verse. But they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. See, every time we refuse God, we move towards darkness. Every time we say, I don't believe what God has said, we're in trouble. Our foolish hearts are darkening. It's becoming harder to see because we continue to be absorbed with ourselves and how fulfilling we are and how realized we are. And look at the last part of that verse. Look with me. Let me see. There it is. Verse 22. Claiming to be wise, they became fools. The Bible clearly calls it like it is. God has made Himself plain to us. Everybody on the planet understands that He exists just by looking at the complexity of His creation. He's displayed His eternal power and His divine nature. It's evident. Wherever you live, it's evident. Okay, we might suppress the truth. Our hearts might be darkened. We might say, God, I don't care if you exist or not. I don't believe in you. That's our choice. But God has made it clear. We don't want to be those people that claim to be wise and instead we become fools because we try to argue and disprove the evidence that's right in front of us. Paul said it when in a sermon he preached once here in Acts 17. Listen to this. He's talking about God and he says, and God made from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, In other words, God has created human beings. That's the clear claim of the Bible. And God has allowed them to spread out all over the world, having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place. God has determined our lives, and so much of it, although we think we're in control, we're not. And 27, look, that they should seek God. God created us. God placed us where we are in the world, that we should seek him and perhaps feel their way toward him and find him. Yet he is actually not far from each of us. God's made his existence clear. He's made it evident, and it's unmistakable if you just simply come to the fact that God exists, that God is the only one that could manufacture this kind of complexity and power, that there is nothing about creation that's simple. And how can, we can't even get the salt out of water in an efficient way, even though there's oceans of water all around us. But God lifts that water out of the ocean, puts it in a cloud, and sends it over to us without salt. How does that happen? These complexities, if you look at the human body and just think about the veins in your body and how they're routed and how they work. It's just unbelievable that we could say somehow this happened by chance. So if you're in a foreign country, you've never heard the gospel, if you look at the evidence of creation and you understand that there is a higher power, that this could not have been by accident, what does God do with you? Well, I remind you of what we said yesterday. In Jeremiah, God says, "You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart." What we have to know about that is, for the people that want to know God, that understand he exists, they want to find him, if they simply seek him, God will find a way to bring the gospel message to that person's heart. Whether it's through a missionary, through a Bible, or through a direct manifestation, God will find a way to find that person that really is seeking him and wants to know him. That's the answer, my friend. And I hope as you witness to your friends today, you can help them understand that the evidence for God, the evidence for his love and his power is all around us. Use these verses to help tell other people who Jesus is. Again, I'm Scott Kalovic. I pastor Living Hope Community Church. If you go to welcometolivinghope.com, you can find all about us and our maps and times for services. We'd love to have you visit us for church one day if you're in the neighborhood. We also have a website called Are You a Disciple? It's built to help us grow in Christ. There's a lot of good information for you there. And again, as always, if you want us to pray for you, go to ipray.world and we'll be happy to do that. All those things are linked in the comment section below. If you have something you'd like to speak about in terms of a verse or a topic, in terms of what kind of devotional we should do, please submit it in the comment section or email it to me. We would love to do our best to answer your questions as well. We're grateful to you. I am really grateful to you because, I know that by the grace of God, you're the one that's watching these, you're the one that's sharing these, you're the one that's helping other people understand who God is and what the Bible's about, and I just appreciate it. Thank you so much for your service to God and sharing these, and we'll just continue to pray for our friends, our neighbors, our relatives, that they might understand what God has said in his word and come to a knowledge of the truth and know him through the grace of God. Serve him well today. We'll gather again tomorrow, God willing, at 7 a.m. here in Denver for another edition of Living Hope Today. God bless you.
Lord, we give you glory.